Hey everyone, so it's November 13th, 2024, and I got these dozen cars over the course of the last few days here. Some were from Market Basket, specifically like this Porsche, perhaps the Humaj, I can't remember. Anyway, most of these are Q-Case 2024s, and I'm pretty excited about especially the GMA. The Gordon Murray Automotive T50 is something I was very excited about. I do think it's interesting they released it in the same batch as the red McLaren F1. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think an enthusiast within the company, gets it essentially. I bought a couple of fantasy cars because I do like the Jello car, and of course yellow is my favorite color. So I bought the Desert Drifter and this ridiculous thing, which actually, it's been a while since Hot Wheels did a mainline glow-in-the-dark car. They don't do that all that often anymore, but this thing does it does take to, it does recharge, and it does glow in the dark. So a quick way of getting that recharged quickly, if you don't know, if you use a black light, and then you block off, if it's not low light in here, but anyway. Yeah, so let's crack these open. Most of these are pretty exciting. Some of them are just recolors that were nice enough where I spend the $1.25, whatever. It's $1.50 at Market Basket now. That's obviously a Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, though, by the way. Speed Bump. It's one of the crushed cars that they released initially with the monster trucks. So let's crack these open. Real quick, to give you some context on the Gordon Murray Automotive T50, I just realized as I was about to crack this thing open, so most people don't know what this is, I bet. Gordon Murray is the designer behind the McLaren F1. He's an absolute genius. He's one of the most amazing automotive designers of our time. And so you have the official write-up where it's the iconic Gordon Murray T50 supercar. This car has a Carsworth-derived V12 that is insanely high revving and sounds absolutely bonkers, quite literally like a V12 Formula One car. That fan you see on the back is actually sucking up air from underneath the car and gluing it to the road surface on tracks or smooth roads. And so these things are designed, it's basically a McLaren F1 with more downforce. Even the McLaren F1 had some very minimal fans in the rear. People don't realize, but they did. These cars this is the only car that has any right calling itself a successor to the McLaren F1. And this is sort of the McLaren F1 GTR successor. But the thing's amazing. I don't think there's any plans to race it, and this time around it probably isn't going to happen, unlike with the McLaren F1 GTRs that happened despite Gordon's objections and McLaren's objections. But I just want to give some context on this because this is an exciting casting. This is the first time anybody's made a T50. I wish it wasn't the S, to be honest with you. I kind of thought it would be cool if they did they probably will do the road going version as well. They have done that with the McLaren eventually, so but yeah, here's the rest of those cards. So this is a pretty good mix of stuff. A couple of fantasy cars in here, but some really exciting recolors. I think people are pretty pumped about this one. I just prefer the chrome one, but anyway, so here we have High Roller, which is a ridiculous fantasy car. That's the second variation of this basic concept. Very minimalist this time around, kind of a 2010 Rolls-Royce vibe. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this casting, but it's not the worst fantasy casting they've ever done. It's not terrible. There you go. Retroactive's kind of cool, and again, especially with the glow-in-the-dark features and this beautiful orange paint, I felt like I had to grab it. And I wanted to highlight, like I said, that it actually does glow in the dark quite a bit. If you do a good job of recharging it with, I have a giant black light, an ultraviolet light that I bought for my Urbex nonsense and whatnot. Next time we go to Ruggles Mine, that'll come in handy. But anyway, so if you recharge it, this thing absolutely does glow in the dark quite a bit. It's pretty cool. I think it's the first one they've done in a while is a mainline that glows in the dark. They keep fooling me and putting out these cars where they have a very vanilla yellowish, like off-white base or wheels, and so they look like they glow in the dark, but they actually don't. That annoys me. Again, from the standpoint of a toy, glow in the dark's fun. Alright, next up, the ridiculous Jello car. There's a Desert Drifter, I believe it's called. It's ridiculous, but I like it. This thing is mostly plastic. I didn't realize that. I don't know if the only metal part is the top here, maybe? Anyway, there you go, you got the lemon. You got they've made blue, red, and green as well. I think this is the fourth coloration. I believe it's red, green, blue, I believe, are the colors so far. So this thing is silly. Anyway, the Alfa Romeo is nice. I've never been a huge fan of these. I thought they were, ironically, being an Italian car, it had sloppier and more busy styling than some German cars that were styled by Italians. So it has an element of BMW or VW Scirocco or whatever to it. It's kind of busy styling wise. Not terribly, like it's a good looking car, don't get me wrong. I just think it's funny that Alfa Romeo had the more cluttered styling with some doohickeys and hood scoops and other nonsense versus, you know, somebody like BMW that just used an Italian to style their cars. So there's the Porsche keychain. This one would not age well. The all metal one I have on my keys, and that does pretty well, but this one is not going to be very durable. It's going to scratch up, and that paint's going to be gone very quickly if you actually use that as a keychain. Here's the Unimog. I have a custom one of these where I relocated the wheels, the spare tires up front, and put a flatbed on it. Changed some stuff around, put a nicer stack on it, smokestack. And then speaking of, to get a four-wheel drive, that's sort of meant to be a crushed car, you know, for monster trucks. But again, it's very obviously a Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. I don't think anybody would argue with that. That's an enthusiast. And here we have a RX-7 FD 95. These cars were so futuristic. The first time I ever saw one of these Mazdas was one of the few times that I mistaked something that's not a Ferrari for a Ferrari. I know that's typical with non-car people. They'll look at the new Corvette or whatever and think it's a Ferrari. A red FD came up the road in, I think it would have been spring of 93. I'm not really sure. Might have been 92 actually. But anyway, came up the road and drove towards me as I was in the back of a U-Haul helping to pick up some boxes to help my parents' friends move in Waltham, Massachusetts. And I saw this car and it was like, this has to be a new Ferrari. There's just no way it's anything else. I thought it was some kind of a, I thought it was a 1990s retro 250 GTO or something. The thing was just so cool. And then realizing it was a Mazda, realizing that it was rotary powered, which I knew very little about at the time, but I knew the existence of the Wankel. That was pretty cool. Latest color of the McLaren F1. That is exciting. It's pretty awesome. Got this thing. Then this thing. Koenigsegg. It says Jesko, I believe. Yep. Or Jesko. I don't know. I think it's Jesko. But what do I know? Being Eastern European, I'm going to go with Jesko. That makes a lot more sense. I think it's pretty cool. I like Koenigsegg's. They're not my number one. Like, some people obsess over specifically that brand. There we go. That GMA is where it's at. This thing is amazing. Like, the real car's amazing. The casting's pretty nice. Side view mirrors would have been nice once again, but just getting tired of complaining about it. It is what it is. But there you go. It's the GMA for Gordon Murray Automotive T50s for, like, sport, essentially. This is a track-only car, by the way, versus the 100 that they made. Oh, the regular 250 are normal. They're actual road-going cars. That's where the excitement is. Most of the people who ordered them and dished out the, I forget what it is, like $2.5 million or whatever for one. Most of those people opted for the manual transmission, by the way. Pretty awesome.